It's hard to believe it's been more than a year since Concord launched and then died. I mean, it was pretty quick, right? It was a few weeks and it was gone. But there was a dedicated group of people who worked really hard to get the Platinum Trophy. Some said that they really enjoyed the game, even though the Platinum Trophy, from what I could tell, was mostly people just throwing themselves off the side of the level because there's a certain number of like matches and stuff you had to get done. It was a whole thing. But there were people who did legitimately enjoy the game. Dozens and okay, maybe more than that, but it's not like the game itself accrued a massive number of players. We saw the numbers, and it was certainly enough to where Sony said, yeah, we're just going to refund people and kill this thing completely. Well, at least it appears there are enough dedicated fans out there of Concord to attempt to bring the game back. And I say attempt to bring it back because, well, Sony noticed and they were not happy, which we'll go over all of that here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. This is over on the Game Post, who's done a very good job sort of logging and following along with this whole situation because it has happened very, very quickly. The first time I saw it was on the 14th, just a couple of days ago, going into the weekend, saying that Sony's Concord is playable again thanks to fan-made custom servers. And there were a few people I was talking about. I was talking to. I said, "Oh, we got to check this out. Really, Concord's coming back?" It seemed like it was mostly centered around PC because the game came out on PC and PlayStation 5, of course. And on PC, you feel like that would probably be the best avenue to set up private servers. PS5 a bit more locked down, I guess. Yeah, you'd expect. So it says, Concord is not completely dead. Community developers have brought Sony's shutdown hero shooter back online with fan-made custom servers, rebuilding its backend and getting full matches running again. I mean, you really got to think about the dedication to rebuild the entire backend to make this work. In fact, there were, this is over on Eurogamer, there were entire quotes coming out of that Discord saying the project is still work in progress. It's playable but buggy. Once our servers are fully set up, we'll begin doing some private playtesting. If anyone here wants to join those playtests, you let them know. And they then went on to thank a bunch of volunteers helping reverse engineer the game. Now, the big part here, it's very important, and I think this is the out that Sony was taking here. The game only hosted, or the team only hosted players who already owned the game files themselves through a legitimate purchase and slapped down anyone trying to share copyrighted files. This is where things get a little dicey because Sony was offering refunds. They even forced refunds in some cases. Sony did not want this game out there anymore. They wanted to take as much as they could back because I assume if they got to a position where they did like goodwill or good faith refunds and stuff, maybe they could write it down and say, okay, you know what? It wasn't going to work. We basically canceled, quote unquote, the project by unlaunching it. And that's, I'm sure there's tax stuff or things they can do there with that, with the write-off, I guess. But in this case, there are still people who have the game. I mean, I have a sealed copy on the PS5 for whatever that's worth at this point. But there, of course, on PC, I'm sure there are people who still were managed to keep their digital entitlement to the game in some way. And with that in mind, if you legitimately own the game, then yeah, you'd be able to play on these private servers they decided to stand up. All right. Now, the problem is there are many people, I'm sure, who got hit with FOMO of, oh, okay, now I kind of wish I had bought the game, or I wish I had kept the files, because this is how it always goes down, right? It's more interesting for the game because of sort of everything that happened with it to then check it out. Like if this game was still just around normally, I mean, let's face it, people probably wouldn't care much about it, but because it got ripped away by Sony, and it was such like a big story and such an interesting piece in gaming history, now people are going to be really curious about playing it, especially since fans have stood up private servers for, I mean, very dedicated fan base. So with that in mind, yeah, people are probably going to be passing around copies of the game, or at least the files that are necessary to play on this private server. And if you didn't legitimately purchase it, Sony can obviously make a case that, hey, they're passing around copywritten material for free. All right, we need to get involved with this. I'm sure Sony is embarrassed about Concord. Clearly, it did. I mean, we've never seen something like that before. It did terribly. So I'm sure that in their mind, they don't want it to come back. They're like, look, we want to leave that behind. But because most likely there appears to be a situation with these files getting passed around, Sony did decide to come in. So far, they've cracked down on different videos for with DMCA, and that's not new for YouTube. That's like that's so common nowadays to see videos just get ripped down by. I mean, at times they can be fake groups that'll come in and copyright strike videos. This, though, seems to be with like Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft. You will see them contract out to companies to come in and strike videos down. And DMCA strikes flow through YouTube constantly, whether it's usually music and stuff that'll happen. But this right here, you can see for anyone unfamiliar, MarkScan is a digital asset protection firm that sends DMCA notices and monitors online content for large clients. The company has a long record of acting on Sony's behalf. Past cases include DMCA strikes tied to Sony Music, removals involving old television footage claimed for Sony, and multiple takedowns connected to Sony Interactive Entertainment projects like Bloodborne Demake and modded game footage. That's the thing that Sony will have to realize as they continue to do live service games on PC. There's the potential of this happening going forward. Mods, obviously, but yes, custom servers for games, especially since live service titles, while people do look at them when they first come out as, oh, this is great, it's never going away, there's always a chance that you end up with a situation like this. Maybe not exactly like this because Concord was such a crazy situation, but as we've seen with live service games, they eventually go away. I mean, it's rare that a game stays around for multiple years nowadays. They many times they'll be here and then they're gone within the same year that they released. It's just these companies do not necessarily feel like holding up a live service game if it doesn't immediately hit the ground running. All right. So with that in mind, Concord going away, Sony going around now, it looks like striking or having MarkScan go around and strike videos that show gameplay footage of this custom server in action. All right. And that's the biggest thing now. It doesn't appear that Sony has gone around right here. It's important to note that the team has not received a direct DMCA notice from Sony or MarkScan for the actual custom server project. So far, all action has targeted YouTube uploads, not the code or the development work. Here's the thing, though. When you send out these DMCA takedowns, it's kind of that message sent situation. As right here, Red, one of the devs behind the Concord project, posted a short update in the Concord Delta Discord saying, due to worrying legal action, we've decided to pause invites for the time being. Just DMCA takedowns like this is enough for people to go, oh, wow, this could get very real very quickly. It's hard to say how far Sony would go with this situation. Here's the thing I've learned not to underestimate these companies with how far they're willing to go with things that feel like they shouldn't be a big deal. But then you hear about Nintendo snooping around in a Discord server for months. You hear about Sony seeing people on eBay sell PlayStation 4 modded consoles with games included, and then Sony buys it from them to catch them in the act. Like this, that's the thing. These companies, when they hone in on something that they think maybe, hey, it'll make headlines, it'll send a message, they will go that little extra just to get it done, right? And here, it wouldn't shock me if Sony found their way into the Discord or did their own investigative work, and maybe eventually they do go a bit further if this project continued on. It really is hard to say because a custom server, you feel like if is done correctly, shouldn't cause issues with the legal side of things, especially if you have a legitimately purchased version of the game. This is the whole crux of the Stop Killing Games initiative. Live service games going away constantly, and if you maybe put money into it or you just enjoyed the game, there is no more record of that title existing at all. It's just wiped off like completely the internet. So having the ability to do a custom server like this with all the work they put in, I mean, to me, it seems pretty straightforward and should be fine. But that doesn't necessarily mean that a company like Sony wants Concord to stick around because, I mean, it's flat out, it's just a mark on their reputation for this live service initiative that, I mean, has had some success with things like Helldivers 2. That's worked out great. But it's been a lot of cancellations and what seems like a lot of even massive public failures like Concord to kind of balance that out. So it's an interesting situation. Concord, I never thought I would see the day that we read a headline, this Concord has returned, but man, it was gone that quick, basically. So it comes back, and then a couple days later, it goes away. Kind of like when it first came out its official release more than a year ago. Here it is, and then it's gone. But they just paused invites. Maybe they're still working on it behind the scenes, or maybe they are moving on from it. We'll see. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below, especially if you were one of the few people, I guess, that's been in the Discord that's tried this out. I am curious how all of that went down with the process of being able to reverse engineer it. And is there like a real dedicated group of a couple hundred people maybe that are really into Concord that would like to see this come back? Let me know. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.